The air was thick with the scent of roasted beans and hurried conversation inside the crowded coffee shop. Amidst the chaos of morning commuters and clattering porcelain, there sat one unoccupied chair. When she approached the man occupying the table, a fortress of solitude in the bustling room, and asked if she could share his space, he had absolutely no foresight that the perfectly engineered, carefully controlled architecture of his life was about to be dismantled, brick by silent brick. It is a universal truth that even the titans of industry, the most formidable people in the world, can find themselves utterly powerless against a force as profoundly simple, yet irresistible, as a truly genuine smile. Before we plunge headfirst into the depths of this incredible, life-altering encounter, please take a second to tap that subscribe button and activate your notifications. Believe me when I say, you will not want to miss the kind of unexpected, heart-stirring stories we uncover here. And make sure you remain with us until the very final moments, because the stunning twist in this modern-day fairy tale is guaranteed to absolutely shatter your expectations. Now let the story unfold. Vincent Harper lived by the clock, a human being who didn't just manage but controlled every variable within his orbit. At 34, he was already a legend, having architected a sprawling tech empire that existed only in the wildest aspirations of most people. His company's valuation wasn't measured in millions but in billions. His calculated decisions possessed the weight to shift global markets. His name was perpetually emblazoned across the covers of prestigious magazines and business headlines globally. Yet, this formidable wealth and unchecked power extracted a steep, isolating price. Vincent had swiftly internalized the harsh lesson. People saw him only as a means to an end. They aggressively sought his capital, his influential connections, his rare opportunities, anything that constituted a sliver of his hard-won success. In response, he became a master architect of solitude, erecting formidable psychological walls. His life was meticulously calibrated, predictable, perfectly organized, and above all else, hermetically sealed and private. Without fail, every morning at the chime of 7 a.m., Vincent would enter the same boutique coffee shop, perfectly situated on the bustling corner of 5th and Main. He claimed his usual table, the most secluded one in the back corner, placed the identical order, a single black Americano, and dedicated precisely 60 minutes to intense work on his specialized laptop before his driver whisked him away to his corporate headquarters. This ironclad routine was his anchor, his bedrock. This routine, he firmly believed, was what kept him inviolable, safe. For 3 rigorous years, this precise pattern had never once deviated. The seasoned baristas knew to never interrupt his concentration. The regular clientele recognized the celebrated face but understood the unspoken rule of keeping a respectful distance. Vincent cherished this sterile arrangement. No sudden surprises, zero complications, and crucially, none of the messy human connections that invariably led to disappointment or vulnerability. But this particular Tuesday morning in late October felt fundamentally different. The coffee shop wasn't merely busy. It was saturated. Every single surface was claimed, every table occupied, forcing a restless queue of people to stand impatiently awaiting a seat. Vincent had never witnessed such a frantic level of congestion. Apparently, a widespread internet outage had crippled the surrounding commercial district, driving a stampede of professionals to this solitary outpost for its dependable Wi-Fi signal. He sat hunched over his familiar table, inwardly relieved he had arrived early enough to secure his territory, desperately attempting to filter out the audible chaos swirling around him. That was the precise moment his focus broke. He saw her. She stepped across the threshold, and somehow, despite the deafening noise and the physical density of the crowd, Vincent's attention was magnetically drawn to her. She was undeniably beautiful, yes, but that description was too shallow, too clinical. She possessed something far rarer. A sheer, captivating presence. A quiet internal energy that seemed to genuinely illuminate the entire space. Her complexion was a rich, deeply warm brown that seemed to glow subtly even beneath the harsh, fluorescent coffee shop lights. Her hair, worn naturally, was neatly pulled back into an uncomplicated ponytail. She was dressed in comfortable medical scrubs, the uniform of a nurse, with a casually thrown-on denim jacket. She carried no visible pretense. There was no evident effort to impress or command attention. She was simply, completely, and utterly authentic. She collected her steaming coffee and slowly pivoted, her gaze sweeping the hopelessly packed room in a silent search for sanctuary. Disappointment clouded her features as she realized the futility of her quest. Vincent observed her offer a small, polite, apologetic smile to a couple who couldn't possibly squeeze in an extra chair, then check another table already overflowing with papers and electronics. She was poised to surrender and leave when her eyes finally fixed on his table, and specifically on the single, conspicuously empty chair placed directly opposite him. For a pregnant moment, she paused, her body language conveying a quiet struggle. Vincent could almost hear her internal calculus, to risk the approach or simply walk away. Then, she drew a stabilizing breath, crossed the few feet separating them, and bestowed upon him the warmest, most unexpectedly radiant smile he had encountered in maybe a decade. "Excuse me," she began, her voice a low register, gentle yet perfectly audible. "I am truly sorry to interrupt you, but would it be terribly inconvenient if I were to share this table? Everywhere else is completely and totally full." Vincent's gut reaction, honed over years of self-preservation, was a resounding no. He always delivered that refusal. This was his carefully allocated time, his personal space, the sacrosanct structure of his routine. Yet, an invisible force held the word captive in his throat. Perhaps it was the sheer, unadulterated sincerity glinting in her kind eyes. Perhaps it was the remarkable absence of the slightest hint of expectation or entitlement in her request. Or maybe, just maybe, it was that luminous smile. A pure, unfiltered expression that managed to ignite a sensation he hadn't realized he had extinguished years ago, warmth. He managed a curt nod. "Sure," he replied, feeling slightly disoriented. "Please go ahead." "Thank you so much," she whispered, sinking into the chair with an almost palpable sigh of relief. "You are an absolute lifesaver. I have maybe 20 minutes before my shift starts, and I desperately needed this caffeine injection." She efficiently produced a well-used spiral notebook and a small, worn pencil case, situated her coffee with practiced ease, and immediately began sketching. Just like that, she made no attempt to initiate small talk. She showed zero curiosity about his identity or his profession. She didn't instantly pull out her smartphone to capture a self-serving photo for social media. She simply existed, completely absorbed in the act of creation. A soft, tuneless hum vibrating faintly beneath her breath. Vincent made a pretense of engaging with his laptop, but his concentration had dissolved entirely. His eyes constantly betrayed him, drifting up to observe her, the serene relaxation of her face while she drew, the minuscule, pleased smile that played on her lips when she achieved a line just right, the delicate way she worried her lower lip in contemplation. She was quite simply mesmerizing. And the most profoundly unusual aspect of this entire encounter was her complete unawareness of his scrutiny. She was utterly lost within her own self-contained world, transforming the blank page before her into something beautiful. 15 minutes elapsed in a fragile, unexpected silence that felt more comfortable than any he'd manufactured in years. Then it inevitably happened. Reaching blindly for her cup, her elbow grazed the edge. The mug tilted, spilling a dark brown wave of coffee across the corner of her notebook, the liquid immediately bleeding into the delicate lines of her sketch. Vincent braced himself, anticipating the standard reaction from the high-pressure world he inhabited: frustration, a flare of anger, the exaggerated fury over a minor inconvenience. Instead, she threw her head back and laughed. It was a rich, honest-to-goodness laugh, deep and genuine. "Well," she remarked, observing the rapidly spreading coffee stain with utter amusement, "that is certainly one method of adding texture to a piece. Perhaps I should pioneer a whole new movement. Coffee splash art could be the next big thing." Vincent found himself reacting unconsciously, a genuine smile curving his lips. A sensation so unfamiliar, he had to mentally question how long it had been since he had allowed himself that simple physical expression. He quickly retrieved a stack of napkins from the dispenser and extended them toward her. "Here, thanks," she accepted, blotting the paper carefully. You know, most people would be furious about something like this, but I operate on the philosophy that life's genuinely too brief to mourn over spilled coffee. Literally. She finally looked up, her gaze meeting his fully for the very first time. "I'm Arya, by the way." "Vincent," he responded, surprised by the unfamiliar softness of his own voice. "It's very nice to meet you, Vincent, and thank you again for letting me crash your workspace. I promise I'm not usually this utterly clumsy." "Well, actually, that's a complete fabrication. I'm pretty much always this clumsy, but I'm actively trying to improve." Driven by an impulse he couldn't recall feeling recently, he heard himself ask, "What exactly are you drawing?" Her entire face brightened, transforming instantly. "Oh, it's nothing serious. Just some character sketches for the children at work. I'm a pediatric nurse at the children's hospital, and I love drawing little cartoon characters for them. It helps distract them, makes them feel a little less scared about procedures and things. This one," she pointed to the coffee-stained bear, "is supposed to be a superhero teddy bear who's brave enough to get his shots without shedding a single tear. Gotta inspire the little warriors, you know." A profound, unexpected emotion shifted heavily in Vincent's chest. She dedicated her life to sick children. She used simple art to alleviate their fear and pain. And she spoke about it with an easy matter-of-factness, not seeking accolades or projecting sainthood, but simply describing it as the inherent duty of any decent human being. They conversed for the subsequent 40 minutes, an eternity that evaporated and felt no longer than 10. She spoke of the young patients she cared for, relaying stories of their astonishing resilience and their infectious, fleeting laughter, even when battling deep pain. He found himself asking detailed questions, genuinely intrigued, interested in a way he hadn't been in anything outside of a quarterly earnings report in years. When she politely inquired about his work, he offered a deliberately vague reply, stating only that he worked in technology. She didn't press for details, didn't pry into the specifics of his immense power. She simply accepted the information and fluidly moved on. When she finally checked her wristwatch, her eyes widened in alarm. "Oh no! I am going to be dreadfully late," she exclaimed. She sprang up, hastily gathering her belongings. "I am so terribly sorry. I completely lost all track of time. Thank you again for the table and truly, for the wonderful conversation. You genuinely improved my morning." "Wait," Vincent said, instinctively rising to his feet, but she was already maneuvering toward the congested exit. She paused, turning back just enough to offer him one last, beautifully radiant smile and a quick wave. "Maybe I'll see you around." And then, in a blink, she vanished. Vincent stood rooted by the table for a long, heavy moment, his gaze fixed on the now empty doorway. The realization hit him with a cold, sinking finality. He didn't know her last name. He didn't have her phone number. He possessed absolutely no mechanism to trace her. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, Vincent Harper, the man who controlled market movements and commanded armies of engineers, felt utterly, profoundly powerless. The next morning, precisely at 7 a.m., he returned to the coffee shop. She wasn't there. He repeated the pilgrimage the day after and the day after that. A week bled into 2 weeks. Vincent became noticeably preoccupied, his mind drifting during critical board meetings, haunted by the memory of her laugh, that effortless smile and her kind eyes. His chief assistant discreetly inquired if he was unwell. His handful of superficial friends asked if everything was all right. He dismissed their concerns, but the truth was nothing felt right. He was a man who possessed limitless resources and could acquire almost anything he desired. Yet the one thing he desperately craved was a woman whose surname remained a mystery. On the 15th day following their meeting, Vincent found himself reluctantly attending a high-profile charity gala being hosted at a local children's hospital. Typically, he would delegate these public relations obligations to a trusted representative, but this time an insistent internal compulsion urged him to go personally. His company was slated to present a substantial donation, and the hospital administration insisted on giving him a tour of the pediatric ward. Vincent traversed the polished hallways, barely registering the droning speech delivered by the administrator concerning patient care protocols and new surgical equipment. Then he heard it. A sound that cut through the sterile quiet. A laugh. That laugh. His heart literally seized in his chest for a terrifying moment. He pivoted sharply toward the sound, peering through the small observation window of a brightly colored playroom. There she was, Arya. She was wearing vibrant scrubs decorated with cheerful cartoon characters, sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by half a dozen captivated children. She was utilizing hand puppets, adopting comical, exaggerated voices, narrating some kind of fantastic adventure, and the children were shrieking with uncontrollable giggles. One small boy, rendered completely bald from chemotherapy treatments, was laughing so hard that tears were streaming down his face. Vincent stood frozen in the doorway, completely still, simply watching her. Watching the effortless way she dedicated her undivided attention to each tiny patient. The way she gave a strong high five to a little girl who appeared too weary to smile but managed one anyway, pulled forth by the infectious warmth of Arya's joy. The way she somehow managed to transform a cold, intimidating hospital room into the safest, happiest haven in the world. Then Arya lifted her head. Their eyes met across the short distance. Her mouth dropped open slightly in pure astonishment. And then that incomparable, sun-drenched smile erupted across her features. "Coffee shop guy," she exclaimed, quickly standing up. The children peered curiously between the well-dressed executive and their nurse. Vincent found himself returning the smile effortlessly. "Hi," he managed, his voice thick with emotion. During her much-anticipated break, they retreated to the hospital cafeteria, sharing truly terrible coffee and talking with the instant familiarity of long-lost friends. She playfully mocked his sudden appearance in her domain. "Are you tracking my movements now, Mr. Vincent?" she teased. "Because I feel compelled to inform you that stalking is generally frowned upon in polite society." He laughed. An actual, genuine, unrestrained laugh. "I'm here for a charity function," he corrected. "My company provided a donation." When he specified the name of his monolithic corporation, her playful expression vanished. Her eyes widened, registering shock. "Wait, your company? You're Vincent Harper, the tech billionaire?" His heart plummeted into the pit of his stomach. Here it was, the inevitable shift. Everything would instantly be altered. She would view him differently, treat him cautiously, or worse. She would suddenly want something from him. But instead of the expected avarice or awe, she merely shook her head, an expression of amused disbelief playing on her lips. "And you sat there," she challenged gently, "and let me babble on and on about my little nursing job as if it were the singular most important enterprise on the planet. You must have been excruciatingly bored." "I wasn't," he countered instantly, his voice sharp with urgency. "I wasn't bored in the slightest." He paused, searching for the right words. "That was the most engaging conversation I have had in years." The sudden intensity in his tone caused her to hesitate. She scrutinized his face closely, and Vincent felt an unnerving sense that she was looking directly through the polished corporate veneer, through the impenetrable shield of money and power, straight down to the lonely, desperately seeking man hidden underneath. "Okay," she conceded softly. "I believe you." Their relationship formally began after that chance encounter. Vincent adopted new, transparent tactics, showing up at the hospital with artisanal coffee for the entire nursing staff, delivering boxes of new books for the pediatric library, utilizing any flimsy excuse he could conjure just to steal a few minutes of her time. Arya saw right through his obvious maneuvers, yet found them strangely endearing. She gently ribbed him, calling him out on his painfully transparent attempts, but always delivered the critique with that signature warm smile that now made his chest physically ache with longing. When he finally mustered the courage to ask her out for a proper dinner, she accepted without a flicker of hesitation. He selected a quiet, unassuming Italian trattoria, nothing ostentatious, nothing that would make her feel uncomfortable or pressurized. They spoke for 4 uninterrupted hours. She unveiled her lifelong ambition, to establish a comprehensive art therapy program for children battling serious, long-term illnesses, a structured method to allow them to articulate their anxieties and hopes through the vehicle of creativity. He, in turn, confessed things he had never dared articulate to anyone. The crushing isolation at the pinnacle of his success, the terrifying realization that he could not recall the last time someone had asked him how he was truly feeling and actually waited for an honest answer. Numerous dates followed, characterized by their simplicity and depth. They walked for hours in city parks, discussing everything and nothing with equal fervor. They visited art galleries, where she patiently explained complex techniques, while he simply relished watching the pure delight on her face. She cooked for him in her impossibly tiny apartment, and he made the astonishing realization that he preferred her slightly burnt, hastily prepared pasta to any Michelin-starred meal he had ever consumed. She constantly made him laugh. She challenged his cynical assumptions. She truly saw him, in a way no one in his previous life had ever managed. Vincent was tumbling, deeply, irrevocably, terrifyingly in love. But the final layer of his protective wall remained intact. He still hadn't disclosed the entire scope of his colossal wealth, the vast extent of his sprawling empire, the overwhelming life she would inevitably be forced to navigate if their relationship endured. He perpetually intended to confess, yet he was paralyzed by fear. Fear that knowing the full scale of his reality would finally change her. That she would cease seeing him as merely Vincent, the man who appreciated her disastrous cooking and her boundless optimism, and start seeing Vincent Harper, the inaccessible billionaire. The truth, as it always does in controlled environments, inevitably found a way to leak out. One ordinary evening, Arya was relaxing in his colossal penthouse apartment. She was idly clicking through television channels while he was preparing them a simple cup of tea when a breaking news segment flashed onto the large screen. Tech titan Vincent Harper announces major corporate expansion. The reporter's voice boomed, and suddenly, Vincent's own familiar face dominated the screen. Stock prices, quantified net worth figures, complex business deals. Every detail of his staggering financial reality was laid out in brutal, clinical specificity. Arya froze instantly. She slowly turned to face him, her expression utterly unreadable. A complex mixture of shock and betrayal. That's you, she murmured, her voice thin. All of that? You're worth how much? Vincent's throat constricted, suddenly bone dry. Arya, I can explain. You are a billionaire, she stated flatly, like an actual capital B billionaire. And you didn't tell me. I wanted to, he rushed out, his apology stumbling. I swear I was going to. It's just, everyone treats me differently when they know. They start demanding things, or they get incredibly awkward, or they pretend to be someone they aren't. You were the very first person in years who simply saw me as a regular man. I was desperate not to ruin that. She stood up, her posture rigid, her eyes glistening fiercely with unshed tears. So, she articulated slowly, each word a hammer blow. You lied to me. I didn't lie, he pleaded desperately. I merely omitted certain details. I didn't tell you everything. That, Vincent, is functionally the exact same thing. She countered, snatching up her denim jacket. I need significant time to process this. I need to think. Arya, please, don't go, he begged. I just need time, she firmly repeated, before turning and swiftly walking out of his luxurious, yet instantly desolate, apartment. The subsequent 3 days stretched into the longest, most agonizing period of Vincent's entire life. He rigidly honored her request for space. No phone calls, no texts, but internally, he felt like he was spiraling and dying. He had finally located something authentically real, someone who inspired him to strive for emotional betterment, and his own ingrained cowardice had utterly destroyed it. On the morning of the 4th day, he reached a resolute decision. He contacted the hospital board and presented an audacious offer. He would entirely fund the establishment of a complete, fully staffed art therapy program. State-of-the-art facilities, specialized full-time personnel, every element Arya had ever meticulously mapped out in her dream. But there was one non-negotiable stipulation. The entire donation had to remain strictly anonymous. Arya could not, under any circumstances, know the contribution originated from him. He had zero desire for her to believe he was attempting to purchase her forgiveness. He simply wanted her dream to materialize, regardless of whether she ever permitted him back into her life. The hospital board, predictably astonished, immediately agreed. A week later, The hospital proudly announced the formation of the new, miraculously funded program to their excited staff. Arya was summoned to a private meeting where she was informed of the impossibly generous anonymous donation that would finally transform her life's vision into an immediate reality. She wept openly, utterly overwhelmed, unable to fully believe that this massive undertaking was actually happening. But Arya was not just kind. She was exceptionally intelligent and driven. She probed for details. She asked specific questions. She subtly dug deeper into the paperwork and the board minutes, and eventually, inevitably, she unearthed the true source of the funding. She appeared at his corporate office unannounced, bypassing his stunned, highly trained assistant and throwing open his imposing oak door without a single knock. Vincent looked up from his immense, highly organized desk, his heart slamming against his ribs. "Why did you do it?" she demanded, her voice tight with residual emotion. He stood slowly, rounding the desk, consciously maintaining a respectful distance. "Because your dream," he answered, his gaze steady, "deserved to be a tangible reality. You invested millions in this," she pressed, her voice rising slightly. "You did this immediately after I walked out on you, after I explicitly told you I needed space. Tell me why." "Because I love you," he stated simply, unequivocally. "And when you genuinely love someone, you want them to achieve their deepest happiness, entirely independent of whether they choose to remain in your life or not." Tears finally spilled, trailing down her cheeks. "I was so incredibly angry at you," she confessed, her voice thick. "I felt like you had deliberately made a fool of me, that our entire connection was fundamentally based on a calculated deception." "It wasn't," he insisted urgently, taking a halting step forward. "Everything that passed between us was intrinsically real. The only omission I made concerned the money. And I only did that because I was paralyzed by terror. Everyone wants something from me, Arya. Everyone. But you just wanted the simplicity of sharing a table. You saw me, the actual human, not my monstrous bank account. I had never experienced that level of acceptance before. I didn't know how to protect it." She wiped her eyes roughly. "You should have trusted me with your truth." "I know," he whispered, "and I am sorry. I am profoundly, deeply sorry." She took one final, decisive step toward him. "I genuinely do not care about your money, Vincent. I never did. I care about the man who patiently listened to me drone on about sick kids for an entire hour and actually gave a damn. I care about the man who showed up religiously every single morning for 2 weeks, just clinging to the faint hope of seeing me again. I care most about the man who made my biggest dream a reality, even when he believed I might never offer forgiveness." He cleared his throat, the sound ragged. "I'm that man," he affirmed, his voice cracking with emotion. "With or without the billions, I am absolutely that man when I am with you. You have the power to make me that man." She closed the remaining distance, resting her hand gently over his heart. "Then be that man," she instructed softly, "starting right now. No more secrets, no more self-imposed walls, just us," he agreed, pulling her into an embrace. She lifted her face and kissed him, and the powerful sensation was identical to finally, completely, coming home. 6 months later, Arya's cutting-edge art therapy program was flourishing, providing solace and vital assistance to hundreds of pediatric patients. The hospital walls were now vibrant with colorful, powerful paintings and drawings created by young patients who were rediscovering hope and joy, even amidst their darkest medical battles. Vincent still adhered to a routine, though a much softer one. He met Arya at the same corner coffee shop every Sunday morning. They occupied the same secluded table in the back corner, and he watched her sketch, sometimes of the kids, sometimes of him, while he only pretended to work on his laptop. And every single time, he vividly recalled the precise moment she had approached him and asked, "Can I share this table?" The single, simple question that irrevocably changed the trajectory of his entire existence. Because true, powerful love cares nothing for bank accounts, social status, or the meticulously constructed walls of self-defense. It simply arrives in a chaotic, crowded room and politely requests the one empty chair right beside you. And if you possess the simple courage to say yes, it changes absolutely everything. If this narrative resonated deep within your heart, please take a moment to smash that like button. It significantly helps ensure that more people can discover these authentic stories of unexpected love and profound, life-altering moments. Hit subscribe for more incredible tales that serve as a crucial reminder of what truly holds value in life. And please drop a comment below. Are you a believer in immediate love at first sight? Or do you prefer the kind of love that grows slowly, like a sturdy oak? I make sure to read every single comment. Thank you profoundly for watching, and always remember, sometimes the greatest treasures in life begin with the simplest of questions. I'll see you in the next one.